Welcome to the Revenue Rewired podcast, hosted by StringCan Interactive's visionary CEO, Jay Feitlinger, and no-nonsense COO, Sarah Shepard. We're here to accelerate your revenue and give your marketing purpose. Well, hello and welcome everybody to this next episode of the Revenue Rewired podcast. Hi, Jay.
How's it going, Sarah?
So good. So good.
So good.
We are all recovering from the craziness that descends upon Phoenix this time of year, which is the Waste Management Open. And I think
Wasted?
only a few were wasted. I know. It's so sad. I remember it 20 plus years, which is so old, but I remember going in high school, I think it was, and it was in the middle of nowhere, dusty, and
Hmm.
not really a big deal. And now you can't even see some of the holes unless you watch it
Yeah,
on
I'm done. I'm
TV.
done with it.
Yeah,
Not going
it's
back.
entertaining, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's fun.
Uh, all right. Well, today we want to talk about something just as exciting as the Waste Management Open, and that's the customer gold your marketing team isn't getting. And I think Jay and I have a unique perspective that we've come to appreciate. I don't know, Jay, that we really appreciated living in different worlds in sales and marketing, like being so black and white in our roles until we started having intentional conversations after the development of the book. So
Hmm.
for those who might not have know, Jay and I wrote a book called Revenue Rewired that we put out in the fall of 25. And it's an amazing tactical book. It's not very long because it's very juicy and we knew that. And part of the challenge we've run into as a marketing agency is having the conversations with clients and prospects about their sales and marketing efforts. And a lot of marketing agencies say, I really would love to know more about your sales and sales teams and all those efforts. But it's like pulling teeth, which if you're a dentist, please ignore that analogy. But otherwise, it's really challenging to get the two to align. And we do better work when the two are aligned. And so Jay and I sort of took on these roles of biz dev and marketing separately, kind of like our visionary integrator roles, which went really well. And so we thought, let's try it with these two roles. And for the last year and a half, I think, maybe two
Yeah.
years, we've been doing it intentionally because marketing agencies are the cobbler's kids, right? Where even even Susan Byers' recent survey was like, "How often do you focus on your own internal marketing?" And I'm so curious. The results might be the same as every year, which is they don't. And so it
It's like
is very
4%.
hard. Yeah, it's like 1 out of 100 agencies focus on their own efforts intentionally, but we really have tried to, eat our own dog food, as Jay would say. And with those conversations have come some insights as to who's responsible for what, which is an episode we've talked about previously, but also how the two communicate. And so I had a chat this morning with a gentleman who runs a HR consulting and PEO firm, and he said, how do you handle the marketing conversations with sales? Because when I do sales, I don't really want to talk to marketing because they don't get it. I was like,
Mm.
wow, so this was the perfect example of someone who goes rogue on the sales side because marketing, quote, doesn't get it. And Jay, I know you've lived in both worlds. And so, from a sales perspective, maybe give us a little bit of insight as to why do salespeople go rogue in the first place?
Well, I liked his perspective. I never would have said it that bluntly, but I definitely
I'm
appreciate it.
paraphrasing, by the way. If he listens to
Oh,
this, I'm paraphrasing.
but I think it's interesting. I've been in numerous, business development sales roles, and obviously I'm beyond passionate about marketing. And when we chat about, this episode, and I reflected a little bit, I've definitely been guilty of when I've been in the sales hat or the sales seat, and not consciously or proactively thinking through, wow, that was a really good question that, prospect asked me. Marketing might benefit from hearing that. And I know, obviously, no, focusing us first on the marketing side, on the marketing side, we have all these different things that we could be doing passively to be learning about visitors to our site and looking at like, the chatbot, details and whatnot. But I think to your point, where the gold is on the sales side. And I just think that, end of the day, a typical salesperson, their motivation is their compensation. And if they aren't clearly seeing how the extra effort of them passing the knowledge from sales to marketing will benefit them, selfishly, they're just like, I'd rather take the next 5 minutes and focus on setting up my reminders and follow-ups for that prospect. And the last thing on my mind is sending over this data to marketing because, marketing could just log into the CRM and read all my stuff. Why should I have to bother with this? But again, obviously, we know from the marketing side, they won't have the context. And so I don't think it's a intentional thing where sales doesn't want to help marketing, but I think the problem is I think that a lot of salespeople believe that marketing doesn't understand their world and they just don't see the value of like, okay, if I invest this 5 or 30 minutes, whatever it's going to take to pass all this knowledge over, I just feel like it's going to be more work for me. And I can't connect the dots to how it's going to help me get more leads and make more money. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people out there that are, wear both hats and they really care about this stuff and they think it's exciting being involved in marketing and they see how if they help marketing will help them like scratch my back, scratch your back kind of thing. But I think end of the day, I think the average, salesperson isn't thinking that way.
All right, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, well, if sales knows better and they often have the information and it's not getting back to marketing, what's the point of them having a marketing person doing any of this work? Like, why isn't sales just doing marketing?
Well, that's interesting. I think end of the day, the salespeople know there are elements that are so outside their realm. Now, again, it's getting a little different now because of AI. These AI tools out there, I think if the salesperson is very strategic, understands how to do marketing, they obviously could definitely cross that line way more than they could have a couple years ago. But I think there's so many aspects of marketing that I don't think the salespeople want to be burdened with. An example, look at social media. I've had chats with so many, sales directors that are like in a B2B space, and their entire audience is very active on LinkedIn, and they're like, I don't have time for this nonsense. All I do is get spam on LinkedIn. I don't want to go there. And I'm like, it's like shooting fish out of a barrel. You're missing out on big opportunities until you show them how it's going to make them more money. They just don't see the value investing in it. So I think to answer your question, I think the salespeople do know that a lot of this is time consuming with creating the content and engaging and posting on social media and all the creative things and all the collateral and the event planning. There's so many aspects of marketing that they don't want to be burdened with. Again, it ties back on what I said before. If you're going to ask a salesperson to have to do more work above and beyond all of their, following up and prospect research and proposals and all the things, unless you show them exactly how it's going to be a benefit to them and how they're going to make more money, they're not going to want to do it. So that's why I do feel like typically most salespeople don't get too far into the marketing weeds, except for doing content that's tied into them communicating with prospects. So like writing the emails, drafting up a post somewhere, presenting at maybe an event, those kind of things. They do this, they see that as sales activities, but other stuff they see as marketing activities and they don't want to be involved in that stuff, typically.
It's just amazing still. Like, I think marketers really need to change their attitude a little bit to be more of service to sales, and sales needs to stop being so demanding in some cases and be more collaborative. And I know that, the ideas that have come to us from other organizations trying to solve this problem is, well, I'll just have sales fill out a form every time and answer some questions for marketing.
Hmm,
And your response is,
I'm not doing that. That's dumb. No, again, it's like I mean, we've had this chat. Again, I when I'm wearing my marketing hat and I've talked with a lot of our, larger clients who I'll meet with maybe one or two of their sales team members, and the things they say to me in 30 minutes supplies me with 3 months of content ideas to share with our team to build out new marketing strategies. You are right. It is so beyond gold what the salespeople, the questions they're hearing, the negotiating strategy, the objections, like all of that stuff. There's just so much that marketing can do with it. Um, and I just think, maybe we need to talk through on this show a couple ideas, but I just think that you got to tread lightly here because I think if you ask the sales team to already do more than they're currently doing, like for example, the CRM stuff. I mean, how many companies we work with that are investing a mini fortune on things like HubSpot or Salesforce, and they're not even properly using it. And the reason is because they feel like it's just too cumbersome. And so when we can't even get them to use a tool that's going to benefit them, to go above and beyond that by asking them to fill out a form or to have a weekly meeting with marketing to share all the insights or writing up a document to share all the questions they've got, it's just not realistic and going to happen. Not to be Debbie
Yeah, so
Downer.
mm. Or Daniel Downer, I guess in this
Sure,
case.
whatever.
But I think there are a couple of tactical items that, to be honest, this is one area in which AI shines, and hopefully the collaboration between your sales and marketing teams can make some of this a reality. And so Jay and I will share a couple of ideas that we've implemented or we've had clients or prospects implement. And one of those is the recording opportunities, like you mentioned, having calls with prospects. There are so many recording tools, Fathom, Ask Elephant, Plod, Zoom AI. There's so many tools within that tool that creating a download of the transcript and then creating a really good prompt for your company to extract some of those nuggets and say, here are some recent pain points that my prospect is experiencing. And I mean, you can honestly upload that into, if you have a well-trained GPT, and say, create a follow-up for me that addresses blah, blah, blah. I just think that this accelerates a salesperson's conversations and helps them not miss the pain points of their prospects, because sometimes the pain points I think can be overwhelming. Or as we've found, the pain point isn't the actual pain point, it's a symptom of a larger root cause issue. So that was one idea I know we've heard that's worked well.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite ones, and probably the one I think that should be step number one. It's so cost effective, and some of these tools are even free. Like one of our favorite meeting recording tools is Fathom, but there's Fathom, there's Otter, there's all these ones out there. Again, I think the marketing team can easily build a workflow that after every meeting that a sales team member has with a prospect, it just can immediately send the summary of the notes, questions, action items, whatever, to not only the salesperson help them make their job easier, but also feeding that into the CRM for the marketing team to really engage with and then find a lot of valuable data. But again, there's so many other things we can do. So, for example, I know one of our clients, we tried doing like the quarterly or monthly meetings with their sales team, and we'd have a really good process in place on how we would make it feel like not like work for them, but just to basically, get a little bit under the engine, kind of talk about what they're hearing. But even there, like if you do that so infrequently, like quarterly, they're often forgetting a lot of stuff. So one of the things that we recommended for one of our clients is installing a call recording software like CallRail, for example. And to one of our clients, a lot of their intake leads or inbound leads are not coming in via form fills. They're actually calling where people actually are just calling the main number and asking to speak to someone in sales. So the challenge with that is if it's a reactive thing and you didn't know it was coming, if you don't have ability to be able to turn a meeting tool on like Fathom, if you have CallRail automatically on, it becomes so much easier. And with these call recording platforms, they're getting so sophisticated themselves where marketing could just get that data sent to them similar to the Fathom meeting recording, and sharing, okay, what are the questions that they're being asked? And then also, what's interesting for that client, when we listened to a bunch of the recordings, we actually were finding that we had a huge opportunity that every single salesperson was addressing the entire process differently, even from how they explain what the company does, the kind of questions they ask, how they're doing follow-ups, like all the things. Everyone was so inconsistent. And so I think there is not only is it a benefit for marketing to learn from listening to all those calls and using it to help building out, new content, FAQs, whatever it might be, but they also can leverage it for building out improved process procedures. To again, the goal is not to make the salesperson feel less than by like you're tattletelling on them, like, hey, Bob isn't a great, person because he didn't ask for our next meeting. Instead, it's basically looking within your company and figuring out, okay, we haven't done proper training. And I'm not saying you have to give like a, follow this word by word script, but you definitely do need to give guidance to your team because if everyone's running around like Wild Wild West, you're going to have very inconsistent results. And it'd be, I think, a lot smarter to learn from the team members that are getting the best results and leveraging that plus the things you're hearing and developing a kind of a really solid process around that. So again, that would be beneficial not only for marketing, but also for operations and training.
Yeah, what's nice about these, at least two ideas, different sources of information, is that it requires basically no additional effort from the sales team. Because
Yep.
while I asked the devil's advocate question earlier, sales and marketing have two very beefy but very different roles. And you want a salesperson being front and center in the relationship, but they need to be empowered and given the information. But the people who provide that empowerment is the marketing team, or at least for the most part, it should be. And the other way, I think that the ease of transition in that information is one of the most disastrous pieces of a company's tech stack, and that is their CRM. And it is such a disaster for most companies that you and I wrote about it in the book and called it the CRM swamp. And funny enough, it seems to get the most comments, the most head nods of like, yes, that is my life as well. You don't even need an explanation. Just say the word swamp, and already the visual of the disaster that is my CRM is popped into my head. And if a sales team or company's culture is really built around making sure that that information is updated and provided regularly, but also being very consistent in the information you're requiring. Like you don't need a magnum opus into this system, but are there certain things that could be provided that feed back to the marketing team? And maybe you can give us a little perspective as to, is that a responsible expectation of your sales team? And if so, why do we see it not happening more often than not?
I mean, it is ties into what I said, a little bit ago. I want to keep this as simple as possible. I think, again, I've seen so many companies invest, tens of thousands of dollars of hiring sales coaching companies and reprimanding their people and doing all these annoying things. It's like, end of the day, we're human. That's why I know I was a little blunt about that in the beginning about it's like, show me how it's going to make me more money. But I think, again, I know there are a lot of people out there that, really love being in sales and love offering value. But more often than not, majority of the salespeople out there are motivated by, their commission checks or their compensation. And obviously recognition and winning awards and all the other things are really nice. But that money becomes like a drug and it does fuel you. And it's happened to me numerous times. So, I just wanted to keep it super simple that, yes, I think it's fair to expect this of the sales organization and that department, but it's just not realistic. And that's why I just say it's like rather than trying to push rope uphill here, it's like let's just make it simple. And so, for example, like I already alluded to it before, but like a third idea to tie into it is again, you got to find a way to have those conversations with the sales teams. I know this might sound like I'm manipulating the situation, but again, I'm just very motivated by making everyone's lives easier. And so for one of the clients that we worked with, we could not get their team to do anything, even though it was a requirement of their job. But they had these amazing salespeople, and they just wouldn't follow the rules dictated by non-sales oriented leadership people. And it was constant like, let's just fire these people. And it's like it's really hard to, fire a couple of your amazing salespeople that are delivering 80% of your revenue growth. So, with that client, what we did was, we had a pretty good rapport with a couple of their sales leaders, and had a conversation just to be like, what are your thoughts about this? And they basically articulated what I'm talking about now, where they're like, it just seems like a huge headache, and we just don't see the value. It's like we're being asked to like fill out these weekly forms and submitting all this data through CRMs and adding the numbers into 14 different stupid spreadsheets. It's just so much stuff. And we're asked to do all this like ticky tacky things, and we never are seeing how it's helping our commissions. So, what we did with that client was we came up with this model of kind of like removing friction. It's like, how can marketing better serve you? And so simply there is like, I mean, unfortunately becomes like this interesting, getting thrown up on kind of meeting where they're like, oh, the website is bad at this, I need that. And it's all these things they need. But I think if you could find a way to remove all of the excuses that a sales team has, now all of a sudden they can't be pointing the fingers at the other departments of why they aren't having success. So that's obviously first battle. But from there, I think sales team members, I know when I've been in pure sales, if marketing came to me and said, "Look, what can I do to make you close more business?" And if we had a really meaningful, intentional conversation around that, I would really appreciate that. Now, the beauty of that is it's kind of like scratch my back, I scratch yours again, where I think now is as a salesperson, if I was given the opportunity to share what I need from marketing, I wouldn't be annoyed if marketing then came back and asked me some kind of deeper dive questions like, oh, that was interesting. What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about that? And using those opportunities to help improve my relationship and my alignment between marketing and sales. And I think if you can really improve that rapport and have a stronger culture that sales and marketing feel like they're one marketing team, not two different departments, then I think all of a sudden asking for information, and then going back and closing the loop and showing the sales team how by them providing that, here's how it helped you. That idea you gave delivered us 14 new leads that we never would have gotten from before. And of those 14, three are going to close, generating $1.4 million in revenue. And by the way, you're going to make 10% of that in commission. I think so. Again, I don't want to oversimplify it too far and come across very condescending sounding, but I think if you can put yourself in the shoes of the person that you need the information from, and you could connect the dots between how this is going to help them, I feel like you'll have a much better chance of getting insights or the gold you need to help improve marketing.
Yeah, and this is also where marketers, I think, over focus, and part of that is client directed, over focus on specific results and like ROI. Some savvier marketers look beyond just those numbers and look at some of the other numbers. And that would be looking at analytics, which is also another scary place, like a CRM swamp. There's like an analytics avalanche. Attribution's always a challenge, but looking at some analytics that if you have FAQs, for example, on your website, doing heat mapping or something, like looking at just specific analytics for that, you can see, are they ever even used? Does anyone direct them? Are they
Hmm.
useful? Are they up to date? Like how many times have you visited them and they're totally out of date? And this is extra important now, as many of us have heard and learned that this is a big LLM source of information is your FAQ page. It's being directed to find that, use that, so that it doesn't have to look everywhere and make its own assumptions. You're basically saying, here it is, and use it. And so it's now serving a bigger role than it ever has before. And using that information from like the website analytics side would be really helpful as well to help feed marketing. And where I think part of this is changing and evolving is that we've always thought about it as a loop that sales needs to feed marketing the information. And that's probably where one of the biggest missed opportunities is that bridge does not exist. But I don't think it's actually a one-way bridge anymore. It's the new visual HubSpot loop, which is an infinity symbol. So HubSpot is so smart. They keep evolving and understanding the customer journey and helping marketers move along that path. And in this instance, I think marketing needs to take sales's comments, their learnings, what kind of information is relevant. They need to then test it and, to your point, bring it back and show the sales team how that's actually helping. Like, here's what we're finding. Are you guys also resonating with this? And keep that infinity symbol loop going of information where sales feeds it to marketing, marketing iterates on it, marketing launches it, feedback to sales, and sales keeps feeding it back and back and forth versus this bridge that is expected to go one way. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, I really don't have much to add to that. It was pretty solid the way you said it. So, yeah, I think we shared three pretty decent ideas here. I know that we don't have the perfect formula to how to solve this, but I think hopefully people that listen to this will can at least figure out how can they just walk before they run. Again, my biggest takeaway from this whole conversation is we know it's a problem. It's not, unfortunately, uncommon. Pretty much every organization that we've worked with over the years runs into this stuff. I think if you can have a meaningful, open, radical candor discussion with your teams and just talk about something that you all feel comfortable in doing and trying it for a quarter. But also, again, I think to wrap up, it's what got you here might not get you to the next step. So I think to your point about the evolving part, is you have to constantly be looking at ways to evolve all of this because the platforms and the tools and the people and the market and all the things constantly change. Again, just what worked for you in Q1 might not work for you in Q2.
Yeah. Hard to hear, but also helpful. I hope. All right. Well, we hope you all enjoyed this episode. As always, we're available at podcast@stringcaninteractive.com. Jay, this was great. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Rewired podcast. Send us your questions to podcast@stringcaninteractive.com and follow us for more insights to drive your business forward.